Hey, 7th graders, Mr. Eller again with another one of your flip lessons. Today we're going to look at the Plymouth Colony and 5Ws. So Plymouth 5Ws, number 37 in our interactive notebook, which is going to finish our interactive notebook for our next interactive notebook check. Should be pretty simple, straightforward. Um, Make sure you're putting in the information in the correct uh, spaces on your fill-in-the-blank notes. All right, here we go. All right, so let me get out of the way here. So, who were the Pilgrims? The Pilgrims were a group of English separatists. So, what did that mean? They kind of were, they wanted to be separate from everybody else. They kind of believed in um, how their things were, and they believed that any outside influence from other people in society was going to negatively influence their group. They were not a very big group, numbering in the few hundreds. Um, at their peak, but they believed they needed to be separate from everybody else. They did not like kind of what we would call like the pomp and circumstance of what the church had become. If you in most of the churches at this point, we're starting to get some Protestant churches, but they're still very close to what a Catholic mass would be. So a lot of the gold ornamentation, the robes, the hats, the long ceremony. To them, it was becoming more about the people of the church and less about actually worshiping God, which to them didn't really work. They wanted a simple religious practice, people in pews, worshiping God, reading the Word of God, and being able to kind of learn from it and live their life that way. Most people didn't agree with them, so they were working to be separate from that group. All right, so when was this happening? So the Pilgrims are going to be in England for the early 1600s, and in 1609 they're going to leave for Holland, which we know as the Dutch, or otherwise known as the Netherlands, and then they're going to live there till about 1620, where they're going to leave the Netherlands. They're going to make a little pit stop in England before heading off to the New World. The Pilgrims are going to face religious persecution in both England and Holland. The Pilgrims were persecuted and hated due to their religious beliefs. So a lot of people hear the word persecution and think picked on. Persecution is way more intense than that. So some things that were happening to Pilgrims is their churches were getting burned. Their houses were being attacked. Their schools were being attacked. Their people were being attacked in the streets. This wasn't just name calling. This wasn't just some practical jokes. This was actual physical violence, and the Pilgrims were facing this nearly every day, due to their religious beliefs, due to their belief that the church should be a major focal point of everybody's life, and that the church should be symbolized and not a lot of that kind of ceremony attached to it. So the Pilgrims left for the New World, and they're hoping to gain land in the Virginia colony. The Virginia colony, again, as we talked about yesterday, is a company. They're trying to make money. They're trying to attract as many settlers as they can. So they offer to sell some land for the Pilgrims to come over in 1620 and be able to practice their own religion freely. Now, one of the things we got to talk about real quick about that is the Pilgrims didn't think everybody should practice their religion freely. The people coming with the Pilgrims were only going to practice the Pilgrims' religion. They weren't going to allow anybody else to practice their religion, just that Pilgrim religion. And this is going to be kind of the big what, which is going to lead us into our talks tomorrow. The Pilgrims are going to land in present-day Massachusetts, which we know is about several hundred miles away from their destination. They left kind of in the late fall, and the Atlantic is kind of tricky during that time period, and they basically just didn't follow the directions correctly, and landed in present-day Massachusetts. Aboard the Mayflower, however, something that's going to be pretty important, the Pilgrims are going to create what is now called the Mayflower Compact. And what they did is the men on the ship, yes, ladies, the men, sat down and basically outlined what the rules and what the laws, what the rights of the colony are, of the people at the colony are going to be. The document is relatively short, about 20 to 30 different points that they're going to talk about on there. But more importantly, it is the first attempt that the colonies in the realization that they're going to have some self-government by the colonies. Now, this is no surprise that it comes from the Pilgrims, because the Pilgrims didn't really think too highly of the king, and the king didn't think too highly of the Pilgrims. So this was something that is seen now as kind of the colony's first attempt at self-government, but in actuality, it's kind of hard to believe that the Pilgrims were going to rely on England that much, anyways, to develop politically, socially, and economically. All right, that's our flip lesson for today. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to hit me up on Schoology or one of your friends on the message board. Till next time, Allard out.